What's going on, everyone? Happy Friday. I'm always happy on Friday, usually, especially if I'm here with you guys. But it's an even happier Friday for me because of a couple things. One, we have two awesome guests tonight. Swagglehaus Comics and Automatic Comics. But on top of that, I'm extremely happy because we all did it, folks. And if I can show my phone, I was like, hopefully we didn't lose one before the show, but we gained another one. We hit 10,000 subscribers, so I'm extremely ecstatic right now. I don't have any champagne bottles to pop, but I'm about to pop my alkaline water here from Trader Joe's. There we go. Refreshing. I celebrated there. No, but I just want to say thank you to everyone, man. It's been an absolute journey. I have a lot more to say, but before I get into any of that, and before I get into a couple little quick announcements, before we bring on our guests, I want to say what's up to some folks. Dale, what's up, Dale? John, Big Daddy Ross. Mark's worried. Uh-oh. Mark, don't be worried. What's going on, Dale? Viper GTS, Viper Guts. I'm sticking with it. Viper Guts. Pedro's here. What's going on, Pedro? Chris is worried. Got swag in the house. Now, guys, don't get it twisted. I'm not gonna tell you guys if I'm worried or not yet. I'll give that away at the end of the show. Tony T, what's going on, Tony? Marvel Goddess 418. Linkovich. Who do we got? Well, of course, we got Swaggle, the Daily Baller. I love it. Fat Dad. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Let's see. Charlotte, Automatic is hanging out. Nukes, Jason, Serge, man, BBB. Okay, folks, before we get into the big discussion tonight, the roundtable discussion with two fellow amazing YouTubers and members of this community, a couple things, guys. So I want to remind everyone that anybody that made a purchase for my first two Whatnot live sales, I had people hit me up, Chris, what's going on? Did you decide to keep the book for yourself? No. So what had happened was I was waiting for my second live sale for it takes Whatnot a while to process the payments, and I wanted to make sure everything was good before I started calculating everyone into the database. But again, don't worry, guys, it's going to take a little bit of time, but everyone that made a purchase in those first two sales, remember, every line item that you purchased is one entry. So probably give me another week or so to get this going, and I will absolutely run and get the winner for that. So again, thank you all for your patience. I do want to remind everyone that my next Whatnot show is live. And as I always say, this is going to be my business model. Because I only do roughly, at least right now, one show a month, what I do is I allow the show to go live, and not live as in, we're live in the sale, but it's active on the app. You can go to the app. If you don't have the app, the link's below. Download the app. Follow me at Journos Comics. And you can go to the sale and see all of the inventory. And this is just some of it right here. I mean, the majority of it is buy it now stuff. So you guys, before the sale even happens, can go in there, secure your books. I give grades, I give details, and I price all my stuff extremely fairly. And I offer a guarantee that I will beat my prices will beat the major online retailers like Midtown, My Comic Shop, etc. For anyone that makes a purchase for this live sale, I will be giving away this Batman 500, the foil variant here, signed by Joe Quesada and Kevin Nolan. Look at that. Beautiful, awesome book. All right, so again, that live show is up and active. Make sure you guys are following me there. I add books every day as well. Now, I'm going to do something tonight. I'm going to give an opportunity to give away a prize tonight. But you guys got to do, and this is in celebration of my 10K, but you guys got to do a couple things for me. All right. Number one here. I'm going into my Whatnot app. I want you guys to see this. I am at 395 followers. All right. Two things need to happen. If we get to 400 followers tonight and we get up to 50 peak viewership on the stream, I will be giving away a $50 mycomicshop.com gift card. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have one of our guests ask a question to you guys in the audience at some point in time during the stream. So again, we only need 5 more followers. So the link in my information is below to follow me on Whatnot. 5 more. And we just need about 17 more viewers to hop on the stream tonight. And if we get there, we'll take a break in the middle of the show and we will give away a $50 My Comic Shop gift card. All right. On top of that, one more announcement before we get into bringing the guest on. No Comic Book Canon show tonight. We are officially moved to Sunday, folks. So we are live in 2 days this Sunday, 5 p.m. Pacific. Dan, what's going on, Dan? 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So definitely check us out there. We're going to be celebrating our 1K subscriber contest giveaway. Massive prizes, guys. I'm telling you, you guys do not want to miss this. Charlotte, who else is there? Astrop, what's going on? All right, guys. Again, I want to express my gratitude for hitting the 10K mark here on YouTube. Brian, thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate you. Thank you for being here. All right, folks. Who's ready? Who is ready to bring in some awesome guests? All right. We're going to bring them both in at the same time. Please welcome. We got Mickey, a.k.a. Swagglehaus, and Ryan from Automatic Comics. What's going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going? Congratulations on the 10,000.
Thank you.
Yeah, huge congratulations on the 10,000. And yeah, thank you guys so much, or thank you so much for having me on the channel.
Yeah, man. And Mickey, we gotta say thank you or congrats to you. We're twinning right now because we both just recently hit 10K. So guys, big much respect to both of these YouTubers. And if you guys aren't following them, their links are below. So take some time right now to go click those links, give them a sub. They both have great content. So I want to take a minute before we get into, everything tonight, guys. We have we're going to get into it. We have a mapped out discussion. Obviously you guys see the title. I collect comic books and I'm worried. I think this is a sentiment that I hear going around. There's some concern about certain things that are going into the hobby, and it goes for all different kind of collectors. So we're definitely going to get into that, but I'm going to let these guys talk a little bit about their channel and what they're doing on social media. Ryan, you want the floor? Why don't you tell us about Automatic Comics and what you're doing and what you got going on?
Sure. Yeah. No. So I'm under Automatic Comics on YouTube, Instagram, and Instagram. I'm posting regularly. Usually it's just, some of my favorite books, that kind of thing. But on YouTube, I usually put out 2 to 3 videos per week. I usually do, I do kind of some like market type videos. I watch the weekly Heritage comic auctions. And so that's how I get a good idea of how I feel the strength is in the comic market. Cause I watch them every single week. I watch hundreds of books per week and see where they're selling. And with that, I do top 10 videos where I'm talking about the 5 surprising sales on the high end and the low end. I like I said, I do market videos, and then I also I do a lot of unboxings. I buy a lot of books, and so because I sell a lot of books, I also sell a lot, and so I think a lot of times I'm showing books that maybe people don't always see on a lot of other channels. So I think kind of it's a good way to get introduced to things, maybe like some golden age books, some little more rare books that, because that's what really got me into it, was looking at other Instagram channels. And so I always found that was a lot of fun seeing these books that I'd never seen before. And so I figured this was a good way for me to introduce this type of content to other people as well.
Awesome, man. Hey, you bring up something. I'm gonna take note of this because if we got time, you just brought us something about how you're scrolling IG and you said that basically you get inspired by seeing what other people post, and it kind of
I mean you could in a way call it like FOMO a bit.
Yeah.
But it's like, because like at least for me with the golden age stuff, it's a lot of books that I'd say maybe at this point, maybe about 2 years ago, I didn't even know existed. And then you start to see just some of this crazy stuff that's out there, and these just and you really start trying to look for it. And there's just something about finding or coming across one of those books that you've been looking for that maybe only comes up for sale a couple times a year, and then having that opportunity to get it. It's I mean it's definitely a little addicting. Trying to find that, and then like when you actually do, the feeling of coming across them. But yeah, no, I mean that's one of the things I've really liked about Instagram is it's really given me kind of a way to expand my knowledge experience in comics as well.
I agree, man. And I'm still waiting on I don't have any. Well, no, I do have. I did recently get a few DC Golden Age. All my Golden Age stuff is like Dell and Porky Pig, Looney Tune type stuff.
There's
Western,
a lot out there. Yeah, it can be tough to kind of like filter through it, to really find what you're interested in, and then you start to realize how many other people, because it doesn't take a lot of people to really impact things like prices and that, because when there's only a few sales a year and you add one or two new people to the mix, that's one more bidder that's coming in on those auctions.
Yeah, it's my goal one day to own a Golden Age Captain America, but one day. So
yeah,
good stuff, man. All right, so yeah, again, folks, links below. Check out Ryan Automatic Comics down below. Swaggle Rock. Do you mind me calling you Swaggle Rock?
No, Swaggle Rock's good. I feel like any kind of swag rhyming is okay.
Right. So do you know where that comes from?
I mean, is that Fragglehaus Rocks, right? Is that what we're talking about here, or Swaggle Rock? No,
Fraggle Rock.
Fraggle Rock.
The
cartoon, or like it was like the Muppet thing from back in the day. Of course, yeah.
Huge Fraggle Rock. So yeah. So that's my little nickname. I never even asked if that was okay. I just kind of roll with it. So yeah. But Swagglehaus, man, again, congrats to all that you've been doing on your channel as well. Why don't you let everyone know what you're doing and what you got going on?
So I'm Swagglehaus. If you haven't come across my channel, I basically like these other guys talk about comics, but in my own way. It's a lot of looking at some of the market stuff, sometimes talking about spec stuff, sometimes just showing books that I'm buying for spec reasons, and try to just put out a couple videos a week, and really it's just sort of like a collector's blog, if you will, kind of, but made into a way that is maybe helpful or provides value to the people who watch it. And like Ryan, I'm also on Instagram under Swagglehaus Comics, and like Ryan, just post books from time to time. And and Instagram is a great place to not get FOMO by looking at all these amazing books that Ryan is posting all the time. But I definitely should say, I don't know if it's going to be in this conversation, but we're going to have to pick Ryan's brain soon, because I'm really curious, as we are on the coming up on Batman right now, and I'm just curious to see if there is a movement in that sort of golden age Batman market, and what it's going to do after the film or whatever. So it'll be interesting to kind of follow that.
Absolutely. All right. I gotta take a time out to say big thank you to Primetime. Thank you so much. Primetime says congrats on 10K subs to one of the hardest working dudes on YouTube. Oh man, 100K is coming. That's a little bit of an inside joke because Primetime had me on his channel. Folks, if you guys are not subbed to Primetime Treasure Hunter, go check his channel out. He said to me, this was a while back, I don't even remember how many subscribers I had then, but he was like, man, Chris, just keep doing what you're doing, and I'm confident one day you're going to get to that 100K sub mark, and he's been counting down every like 1,000 that I get. He's like, 95,000 to go, 90. So
Yeah.
definitely appreciate the support, Dom. Thank you so much.
Empire, and Mickey, I keep seeing more and more graded books on that shelf back there. I know you've been.
Well, you look. So let me just say, CGC unboxings make for great content, as you know, Ryan.
Yep.
So I had to do a little bit of them, but I think I'm okay. I think for a little while now. I think with my CGC books.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, again, folks, you're getting to know them here. Make sure you guys give them some subs and check out their content. We have a lot to talk about, but before we do, I'm going to say one more reminder. I will be giving away a $50 My Comic Shop gift card to somebody in the chat tonight. If we get over 50 viewers and we hit 400 followers on the Whatnot app, and I'm checking for an update right now, and we are at 396. So we just hit 50, but we need 4 more followers. We're at 396. We got to hit 400. So I'll be checking throughout the show. And guys, my information is below. The Whatnot app at Journos Comics. All right. Somebody can win a $50 mycomicshop.com gift card. Take that, dummy. What's going on? Mickey, congrats. He won the Alpha Flight #1 from a recent giveaway. But folks, we got to get into this stuff here. So, all right. We are going to discuss a few main talking points, guys. And it's going to really circle around the state of the hobby. Now, let me just start off by expressing that I am always very optimistic in life, but more pertaining to comic books. Since I've been doing my YouTube channel, I've always wanted to take a very optimistic approach and a positive approach. And I'm sure you two know, we as collectors, we collect in many different ways. There's always going to be people out there that say, I don't like this about the hobby. I don't like that about the hobby. This is ruining comics. This is ruining the hobby, and so forth. And I'm like, guys, look, let everyone do what they do. You do what you do. And the comic book hobby works in such a way that there's always something for us. There's always something there for everyone. But I will say, going into 2022, I do have a bit of concern myself. Now, I'm not saying that, I think the sky is falling or that it's anything extreme. And again, we're going to get to that a little later in the show. But there are definitely some things that I'm looking at, and I'm starting to stray away a little bit about this kind of blind optimism. And I'm really, kind of putting a bit of restraint on to say, maybe this, I don't know. So we're going to start with a little bit of FOMO, folks. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to pose a talking point, and we're going to take turns. We'll have Swagglehaus jump in, and then we'll have Ryan jump in. Then when I come in with the next point, we'll switch it up. We'll have Ryan jump in. We'll have Swagglehaus come in. And then, of course, I'll say my piece, and we'll kind of go at it here and just, put it all out there on the table. But let's talk a little bit about FOMO. And I know that all three of us here constantly bring it up to some extent in our videos. I personally did a video recently questioning, is FOMO a mental illness? And I know that's a bit of an extreme, title, but if you guys watch that video, I'm not talking about every collector, because I also believe that there is healthy FOMO. I do. But I also am seeing a almost a state of, hypervigilance, a fight or flight towards gimme. I need. And it's almost becoming this addictive nature to where we don't even, and we all probably talk about and understand to an extent market value and supply and demand and all these things that move a market day to day, week to week. And it's almost as if we don't allow the market to catch up to itself with prices anymore because it doesn't matter. And like Ryan, you were saying a little bit earlier, there are times where if we get a certain spec announcement or even a rumor or a trailer or something or a sneak peek at the end of a Disney Plus show, and it's 12 o'clock at night and we're pulling out our phones and we're hopping on eBay, and it could be a book that nobody even cared about. So that's why there might not be many online for sale. But now that we got some spec or a sneak peek that makes the book mean something in our heads, all it could take is 2 people bidding that book up with that FOMO and going at it. So Swagglehaus, I'll let you jump in here right now. Just in terms of where FOMO is at currently, how you see it, whether it's as a collector yourself, when you're in the market to buy, and you sell some books here and there. So whether it's as a seller or just being a part of this community, what are your thoughts on the current state of FOMO, and are you concerned at all?
Well, definitely a lot to unpack. And let me, I guess, start by saying with the mental illness part of it, I mean, I'm not a, psychologist or anything, but it feels like, FOMO exists, outside of just comic books, right? Like there's FOMO in other types of markets and things and even in just lifestyle, right? Like we get FOMO because we didn't go to the party that our friends were going to. So like there's FOMO all over the place, and it is a human thing to have this drive. So I don't know if we as people are ever going to like shed ourselves of, this feeling of FOMO. But when we think about, it in terms of comic books, I think this is a really interesting week to have brought up this conversation, which I think is interesting because, for the people in the chat, like you wanted to set this topic up even before we got those Super Bowl trailers that we got. And what a way to sort of set up this conversation is because we got to talk about like Illuminati and Moon Knight books and all that stuff. And I mean, I think for a time there, it felt like, at least anecdotally in the comic market, like the FOMO and the speculation of like the Disney Plus shows like Hawkeye and things like that, and having like books week to week just go absolutely, to the moon, and people buying at midnight, after the show has premiered or whatever. It felt like that kind of really went away for a while. And so part of me was thinking that like this craze of FOMO was dying down a little bit in the comic book market. But then we got this week, and it feels like this is exactly what was happening with WandaVision. I mean, that's like the level of craze it feels like we're hitting with some of those Doctor Strange books and some of the Moon Knight ones and stuff like that. So I'll say this as far as like to answer your question of like, am I worried at all? The one thing that I'll say that does worry me about FOMO in terms of the behavior of collectors is that at a certain point, if you're a person who keeps buying into like these hot spec books and these FOMO books, and you keep, buying at the top, so to speak, it's going to burn you and it's going to demoralize you as a collector. And if these books go up too fast and then crash super hard, and you're someone who's like in the red in your collection, that's going to get a lot of people out of the hobby. Like they're not going to want to collect anymore. So as far as like, what am I particularly fearful of is like, my fear is that this chase to get the hot book is actually going to push a lot of collectors out of the hobby. And that would be sort of my doomsday scenario for what FOMO creates. But I don't know if we're there yet. And I don't know if this is just going to be the nature of like how people always kind of come in and out of the hobby. It's like, there's going to be people who learn their lessons and then they, figure it out. And then the next group of new collectors come in and they learn their lessons and then we figure it out. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of my initial thoughts of what you were bringing up.
I hear you, man. I like that you talked about just life in general and how, and I talked about this in that video that I did. I think it's very much a cultural thing. This need to feel, it's the the dopamine, need to feel relevant or whatever the status quo is, when you look at like how social media feeds that with like hearts. So how many hearts did we get on our post, or like who's, and it's this need to feel present in something that matters. But I think we're forgetting that being present doesn't mean how many likes we get on a social media post or something like that. So I definitely think this addictive nature is definitely something that's cultural and goes way beyond comics. And I think that's where it definitely gets concerning. And to your point, I think it goes down to the individual. If we can't, it's similar to gambling. Somebody can go to Vegas with, and I say this a lot, about taking risks. Somebody could go to Vegas with $1,000 in their pocket. They say, they take their family, or maybe they take their wife, and they're like, we're going to have a weekend in Vegas. We're going to budget. We're going to take a certain amount of money. And guess what? I'm going to go in. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have a few drinks. And if I walk out of there with that $1,000 being gone, I'm good. I'm happy. I enjoyed my time. But if I walk out with more than $1,000, then it's like, it's a bonus. Next to where somebody goes in and that $1,000 is gone and they're itching, and they go to the bank and they start taking another 1,000 out, and they lose that. And then that's where, it hinges on that borderline. That's where it becomes really problematic. But Ryan, we got to let you jump in here. So again, just taking what we both said, FOMO.
Well, yeah. So,
where are you?
I have a group of I told you guys I just got back from from a snowboarding trip, and I have a group of friends I go with and I'm on a chat with, and we use that word a lot where if somebody didn't go on the trip with us, we're like, let's take some pictures and make sure that they have FOMO for next time, so that we we get them to come on the next trip, and so I mean, yeah, it is a very real thing. People feel like if they're missing out on something, they'll they want to go after it. I do, my big concern does align with what Swagglehaus was saying, in that if it could potentially push people out of the hobby. Now, I feel like it's more likely it's people that would be very new. And so you have people that decided, they're like, oh, this is the hot thing, I want to get into it. And they buy at the peak, and then they look at it and they go, oh, I spent $500 or $1,000, and now that thing is only worth half as much, or a third, or probably about 2/3 as much, because that's really what we saw a lot over this last year, where we had books hitting, these crazy new highs, and then for a lot of books, they pulled back about 30%. And some people have started bringing technical analysis, from stock trading into it, and they say it's like a 50% retracement and this kind of stuff. And it's about what it looks like, is what it comes down to. But it's that kind of thing can be a big deterrent for people. And that's why, for me, I personally, I just I don't tend to go for any one specific type of book. That's how I buy. I'll say I'm a very opportunistic buyer. And so I'm just broadly looking at the market, because at any given time, what I've seen is that the comic market only has so many people in it, and has so much money that can look in one direction or another. And so when people are hyper focused on one area, you get big spikes in that. But then you have a lot of the other stuff is pretty normal, and so you can look in those areas, and you can find plenty of books that are great deals and all that. But if you're looking to buy that book that people are already talking about, you're already too late. You're too late, and you're probably better to just steer clear of it, because you're going to rapidly be trying to flip, and that's how people end up with huge collections of boxes of books in the house, and so I mean, for me personally, that's why I tend to steer clear of the that kind of the flavor of the month thing. Now I might use that to my advantage as someone who sells books, and I'll make sure, it's like, oh, I know a Moon Knight trailer's coming out, I'm going to make sure I have my my Marvel or my Werewolf by Night 32 or 33 or whatever listed, because I think it has a chance that it's going to catch that spike. I mean, I think if you're selling books, you kind of it's important to be aware of those events, but I try not to buy into that.
Yeah, and that's just business. I mean, no harm in that. That's the way it works. But I think a couple things I want to know. One, to your point, and I think this can be a learning piece for everyone watching, especially newer collectors. I don't want, and I know a lot of people get like this. We just talked about buying the high and people getting burned out. And it's like, and this is why where, FOMO at that extreme level is really, correlated and tied into being uneducated or impatient. So I don't want people to think that we're sitting here saying, oh, books get hot and then they just drop, because I really hate people who constantly say that it's the 90s all over again and the comic book market's crashing and these books, there's no way books are worth this much and all this. But I do want to state that a lot of these books, you can even look at West Coast Avengers 45, First Appearance of White Vision, and how I always use that as a talking point when we talk about recent FOMO, because that book ballooned so much and came back down hard. But the book in like every grade is still worth more and is selling for more now than it was before we reacted and saw that end credit scene. So,
well, I mean, that's the important thing to notice across basically all of the comic market. I mean, we had this jump in prices in just about everything, at least with respect to key type books. And there are very few, if any, examples of books that have come back down to their prices that they were at before.
Yeah.
And so they really have, like, they were here, they went up here, and now they dropped down and they're somewhere in the middle, but they're still up. And so, for anybody that owned the books prior to like March of 2021, they're still very happy regardless. And there's tons of books that even if you bought later on, are perfectly fine. And that's one of the things I've really noticed is that it seems more like we had this increase and then kind of a drop to a new level. And now what we're seeing is we are still seeing new highs. I mean, like I said, I watch these auctions every single week. I watch a lot of sales and I still see new highs. It's not nearly what we saw earlier in 2021. At that point in the peak, it was getting like 50 to 60% of the books that were selling on a weekly basis were hitting a new high in grade. And now it's down to around, I think it's down to around 20 to 30%. It's quite a bit lower, but it's still new highs. And it just, you find it tends to be a little more targeted now. And which is like what it used to be. You used to have books that would hit new highs. And now you're having, it's more like, the Werewolf by Night books are hitting new highs, or the Batman books related to the movie are hitting new highs. And it's just, it's the books that deserve to go up at that moment instead of just an across the board jump.
Right.
And I think this speaks to, the fact that we as collectors or whatever you're buying books for, you got to be patient and you got to make sure you're understanding when you're looking at that book and when you're making a purchasing decision, because when you're buying that book is really what matters. Now, to your point, Ryan, and Swagglehaus, I want you to come in on this. We're talking about books that are respectively getting that FOMO due to movie hype, Disney Plus, and all that. But we've seen recently too a lot of books that are just introducing new characters. Now, of course, they could correlate, like Black Panther #3. We're gonna FOMO and spec on this book because maybe this character might show up in the MCU. So. But I don't know. I mean, we've seen it with DC over the last couple of years too, with new characters. Do we feel like, and again, I'm kind of posing this question, when we're seeing new books come out on the market and they're out the gate selling, and the moment they release, they're selling for 10, 15, 20, 30 bucks. Black Panther 3 hit $100 raw for cover A. Is this maybe? I mean, do you see this is still more of that like? Concerning FOMO, or is there maybe something there that's a little less concerning to where it's a statement that people are actually buying into comics without there having to be movie hype all the time? What are your thoughts on those type of books really seeing these crazy spec and FOMO jumps?
Yeah. Well, like the Tosin book that you're kind of referring to, and I think specifically the variant cover, which was like the 1 in 25, was the one that went absolutely crazy. And that one is like, It's hard to say. I mean, I made a video about that subject, and people are saying this is like the next Miles Morales, and you know what? Maybe it is going to be. Like nobody really knows, right? We don't know, but I think what I like to do a lot when I've been doing videos and looking at numbers and stuff is like, I think it's good to have some sense of like, okay, well, what books have movie tie-in speculative value that are going to raise in price? But more importantly than that, when we're looking at like values of books, I like to compare them to other books and other characters. And so, for instance, if I'm going to buy like whatever, like a first appearance of Adam Warlock, I like to think like, okay, well, here's how popular he is, at least in my mind. Here are other characters that are somewhat popular. What do their books sell for? What does his book sell for? Like now that he's been in the rumors. And where I'm going with this is like, when we talk about the Tosin book and people are saying, hey, he's going to be the next Miles Morales. One of the things I brought up in that video was like, okay, well, what is the value of the Miles Morales book? And now what is the value of this book that is being sold? And when it's starting to flirt with numbers that are somewhat equivalent, or not equivalent, but like, we're getting close to like Miles Morales numbers. It's like, feels very speculative all of a sudden. Like,
right.
Maybe this guy's going to be the next big thing. Maybe that he's going to be Miles Morales. But like, if the ceiling for him is Miles Morales values and his book is already hovering around those ceilings, like then why do we assume that this is going to be a safe purchase? So as far as it relating to FOMO, I mean, on the one hand, I think it's all FOMO stuff aside, I actually think it's kind of good that sometimes there are new comic books that can generate that kind of excitement. I think that actually is a good thing, that outside of movie spec, there's that excitement. Although it's hard to determine because maybe people are thinking that character is going to be a movie spec character. So it's really hard to get a sense of that. But with the FOMO stuff, like for me, it is an exercise in patience and doing research in terms of trying to figure out like when you buy this book, like what is the right number to be paying for this, and trying to really do that research yourself so that you don't make that mistake. And if you're getting that FOMO, I mean, you're not going to take the patience to do the research. And so that's really like, I think one of the big issues with that one.
Yeah. I mean, I like how you did the comparison factor there too. I think people can definitely use that tool, because one thing that I like too with new books is sometimes you see them moving units, but the price isn't going crazy. Like, you could get a new book that, is just hitting maybe $15, but it's selling units. And I think that's very fair and a very healthy thing, and it helps out the publishers. It brings money in the industry. Ryan, did you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say I do the same thing with older books. Like if I see the price is spiking in an older book, I'm like, if this book is now X hundred or X $1,000, you could also buy this other book, and it's like, is that book does that book deserve to sell for the same amount as like an X-Men 1 or Fantastic Four 1 or, and Fantastic Four 48, like any of these things where you start to see like some of these more like an obscure-ish book, or like that West Coast Avengers, when it was hitting over $1,000, it's like, you can buy some pretty awesome books for $1,000. And it's like, why do I want to own West Coast Avengers? Was it 48? Is that the one? And so, and that's why that's part of why I think you see it drop, is that then it's still worth like, I think like $300 or $400. Like it still has surprisingly high value.
Yeah.
But I think part of that remaining value is that people are like, well, they just kind of ended his story in WandaVision, didn't really do anything. And so maybe they think he's coming back. And so I think there's that level of speculation left in that. But yeah, when you start comparing it to other things you can get, you really start to kind of do that cost benefit analysis on the books you're buying.
Yeah. But that's like a good point, is like, even with the West Coast Avengers book, where it's like, people were buying it for whatever, like you said, $1,000 or whatever. And it's,
I think we hit at 1,500.
Right. Like a 1,500. And it's like, what should this book, how valuable should this book be? It's like, you got to ask yourself those questions. And it's like, okay, it's a book that came out in 1988 or whatever the case is. So it's a Copper Age book. It's a first appearance, kind of, but let's just say that it's a first appearance of a version of a character. So it's like, what are the other books that are like that? Like First War Machine armor. Okay, that one sells for like $500. Like, okay, so maybe this one is a similar type of book, you know? And it's like, so if you make those determinations, then you can know your number that you would be willing to spend to. And then if it goes a little higher than that, because it's like, now he's in the MCU, it's like, cool. Like if it goes a little lower, it's like, I didn't lose too much. And I think that that's really the important thing to do.
It's also important to understand that the CGC census can be tricky when you get to books like that, because people will think something is rare or there aren't a lot of them, but it's just there was never the value to submit them for grading.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a
So then, like 6 months later, it's like, holy crap, there's a ton of these out there.
Yep. It's like the the book that had, I won't say what it is, but the book that had 29.8s on the census, and then a couple people talk about it, and then it ballooned over $500. And I'm like, guys, there are probably at least 100,000 potential 9.8s of this book out there that just nobody sent to CGC because nobody cared about spending $30 and sending it to CGC to get graded. Stop paying $500 for this book. It's like, it's crazy, but yeah, that's actually it's a tricky thing.
I was going to say, actually, like, do you think, Ryan, maybe you would know this. Do you think, like, you know how like we had the peaks in sort of April and May of last year, and then like maybe at the end of the summer is kind of a low? I wonder if is that like just correlated with the fact of like everybody just was like, I'm going to send all this stuff into CGC, and then it's like you have all this supply, like whatever, 4, 5, 6 months later.
I mean, maybe for some books. I mean, because you definitely saw that with like sports cards and like Pokemon cards, that kind of thing, where you had that big peak, and then people just started just barraging, you know, PSA and everything with books or with cards. So I'm sure that has some impact on it. I think the older you get in the book, the less impact it has. But definitely on the, you know, on things that are within the last 5 to 10 years, I really would see something like that having a pretty substantial pressure on the price.
Yeah.
Awesome. I want to, Mickey, you want to jump in there?
I wanted to throw it if I don't know if you wanted to go to the next topic, Chris, but I did have one thing that I thought was interesting about FOMO, or at least just talking about it, is, you know, I think, and even just to your last point, Ryan, where it's like certain books, like, you know, this week, if it's like Moon Knight #1 or Moon Knight this and that, those books go, you know, crazy to the moon and stuff. And
to the moon,
we can, to the moon. We can assume that, you know, sometime after the show, you know, they might correct back down or whatever the case may be. But there are sometimes books that are in the FOMO circuit that don't actually go back down, or maybe not yet. So like one that comes to mind to me is like the first time it was kind of like the big rumor that like the High Evolutionary was maybe going to be the villain in Guardians 3. Like that was a Silver Age raw book that you could get for like $40-$50. And now it's like, you can't find that book for less than $150. So if you were someone who FOMO'd that day into that purchase and got one for like $60 or $70, like you kind of did the right thing. So
I mean, I think it's all timing, you know, which is tough. I mean, that's where trying to time any type of market, you know, anything, you know, because, and I know some people get upset when you call it like the comic market and that kind of thing, but it is. I mean, it is what it is. Like there's a lot of money that's in, you know, you have people spending hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on these collectibles, and so it is. But
to that point, because I didn't want to forget, like when people say like, oh, comic books are not investments, I'm like, I don't know what kind of money you guys make, but like if you're going to put $10,000 on a book and you don't consider this an investment, like I don't know what you're doing with your money. But anyways,
I don't have that.
I don't put away. $10K down on a non-investment thing.
Yeah. Well, I want to jump in on that note, and we're going to get to our next talking point. This we're going to wrap up this piece, you know, looking specifically how FOMO ties in all this stuff. I want to speak to specifically the movie spec hype, because, you know, we talked a little bit about, and Mickey, you said yourself, sometimes it's tough to tell when a new book comes out. Are they caring because it's a new character and they want to just collect him in the comics, or do they think he's going to show up in a movie? But then you got DC that, you know, doesn't have that push that Marvel has had over the last decade plus. So you get characters like Punchline, who was very, successful in terms of the hype. I don't think people were sitting there, oh, Punchline's going to show up in a movie. It was more like, well, here's a character that's tied into one of the greatest villains of all time and so forth. So I want to ask you guys though, and Ryan, I'll let you answer first here. When it comes to movie spec, and looking back for me, and I don't think many of us were on YouTube as much back then, or like when in the early days of the MCU, 2008, 2012 with the Avengers, there wasn't as much there. The Key Collector app didn't exist, where you have this database that gave you instantaneous information. So we definitely were fed information differently, but I don't really recall it being as crazy back then. But I'm thinking that a big thing that really brought this movie hype spec in was the first time that we saw Thanos in the end credit scene and in the Avengers, the first.
Yeah, and if you actually go back and look at prices from when that happened, you did see like a jump, and then it was level for a little bit. Then you saw another jump, and level for a bit, and you saw another jump. And that one, I actually looked at that one relatively recently because I was curious about where it stands now versus where it was. Now the whole Eros thing kind of threw a loop, a wrench into that a bit, because it added another bit of spec to that, Iron Man 55. But even that book, that was one that I've talked about, where even that book, which is, it's one of my, like, Thanos is one of my favorite characters when I was a kid, because I grew up with the Infinity Gauntlet storyline and everything. And even that book was not immune to drops in prices once he was killed, in the movies. It fell, almost in half, maybe not quite that much, but pretty close. And that's a pretty big key issue, and
I just want to say real quick, sorry to cut you off. Marvel Goddess, thank you so much for the super chat. Truly appreciate it. All right, Ryan.
Yeah. So, with respect to movie spec, that kind of stuff, I don't think any book is really immune to it. Once that character is used up,
well, let me ask you. I want to try to steer your thoughts specifically to, do you feel, outside of how it really, I don't know if you can put it outside of how it affects the books, because it's obviously correlated specifically to this, but do you feel, looking at, the trajectory of how these books have done on the market as the MCU has grown and everything, are we at this a crazy point right now where we put so much, and let me give you a little bit of context of where I'm coming from. I've always said, I think it's so great that, because there's a lot of people out there that say, well, you're going to let, somebody showing up in a movie and it's going to change what you want to pay for a book, or affect what you're going to pay for a book. That's crazy.
Absolutely. I will.
It will.
And I always say, it's we as collectors that grew up with these characters as kids, and we're seeing them in these movies, it adds on to the whole experience of how we experience these characters. And we're always going to, just like we're always going to have the comics, we're always going to have the movies. And I think it drives our love for these characters. And that's why essentially it takes us back to the comics. And you can really understand it when you get into seeing really bigger characters, even bigger villains like Thanos, or when we saw, Black Panther on screen for the first time. But do you feel that mentality of, they're showing up, it could be, Paste Pot Pete is going to be in the next Spider-Man.
I hope so.
Do you see what I'm saying? So what are your thoughts on that? Are we at this level? And again, this goes back to FOMO. Are we now blindly they're in a movie, or, they're in the MCU, and then I need.
Well, part of it though, too, is that it's not just that for me personally, that it's that, they're in that movie now, I'm willing to pay more for it. It's that when a character shows up in something that's more widely culturally available, you bring in new people that have an interest, and it does, and there's only so many of these books out there. I mean, that's the thing. Like with a lot of these, there's only so many of these books out there, and if you have an entity like Disney that has a huge reach, and you have like Black Panther making, I don't know if it crossed the $1 billion mark, but close to it, you know, and having worldwide hundreds of millions, if not billions of people seeing that movie, it only takes a very, very, very small percentage of those people to go like, hey, maybe it would be cool to own that book, you know, and now that starts moving up. It's another person that is now interested, that is contributing to the demand side of that equation. And so, yeah, being a more, you know, culturally relevant character, it does have an impact, and it's hard to, I think it's difficult to say it doesn't.
For sure. And to that point, it's like I always say, you know, a book is as valuable as it is relevant to pop culture, right? So like when you have AF-15, it's valuable because Spider-Man's always going to be in a movie. He's always going to have a cartoon. He's always going to be on pajama pants. Like he's always going to be relevant in that sense. So that's why that book is always going to be valuable. Whereas like Infinity Gauntlet 1, you know, is going to be as relevant as it is, you know, the movie that is there. But like, of course, these movies affect our perception and how we want to desire certain comic books. I mean, like we all only can have so much emotional investment into a character that we read in a comic book. And so sometimes it takes a movie for me to be like, oh, I never knew really like what that character was like, or I didn't know, you know, like that's kind of what they stood for. And now I really like them. You know, it's like, I didn't know who Vigilante was, but I watched Peacemaker. I'm like, this character is dope. I might go pick up you know, I might go pick up a you know, an annual #2. Like, you know, that's how it, and it's like, it's not FOMO. It's just that it's like, I just didn't know anything about the character. And it took some pop culture show to introduce me to him because I wasn't going to put in the effort to read him myself. And also like, I like even movie spec aside, I mean, like how many collectors do you know that the reason they like X-Men is because of the animated cartoon? Literally like 95% of everyone who is our age who's like, oh, X-Men's my favorite.
That's why I buy Avengers Annual 10.
Yeah, it's because you watch the cartoon. It's not necessarily because you just read the comic books.
Let me add to that because you touched. I was going to say this for when you wrapped up, and I was going to add this, but because you brought that up, I was just thinking like, we know Batman's, well, you know, been around for, you know, 80 plus years, and every generation has grew up with them in some form or fashion. But the Batman the animated series, when I read Batman, I hear Kevin Conroy's voice, and sure, maybe I would have been a Batman fan if that show never happened, but it added so much to me, and it you know, it carried over into the comic book. So I wanted to say that because I'm just glad you brought up the X-Men animated too, because I think it's that very same thing.
And I think that's why people connected like Batman Adventures 12 so much. It's like that's the Harley Quinn that a lot of like us picture when we think of Harley Quinn. It's like that the animated, you know, version of Harley Quinn.
Yeah. And I think back to your point, Ryan, when you were mentioning the Thanos book and like how it had its dip and stuff, and it's like, and for sure, all books I think are always going to have their dips and corrections, but like one thing that I think is interesting too, at least in terms of like the future outlook of the market, is it's like, remember the MCU was honestly a huge experiment and they hit a grand slam. Yeah. And they hit it out of the park so far that this is a brand that is as important to Disney as Star Wars is. And like, you know, like things are different now, I think, now on the other end of Endgame and Infinity War, because it's like, even if this, you know, whatever the next phase, let's say it's just not that good or it's not as cool or whatever, like Disney's not going to abandon this, or they're going to like, whatever, retool it and revamp it. And they're going to launch it again with like new, you know, Cap and new Iron Man and stuff. Like this is a property that they're like, we can keep this going for like 50 years. Like there's no reason that they can't do exactly what they're doing in the comic books with it. And that's probably how they see it. And so I think that when you talk about like the phase of the first Infinity Saga and what comic books did at that time, you know, I think like just still people were unsure, like, is this something that's really worth it? I think that now it's kind of like, oh, okay, like this is going to go on for a long time. So my like emotional and financial investment into this thing, I mean, nobody really knows what's going to happen, but presumably has like a future with it. So
I mean, that's something that I do consider when I am thinking about the books I've bought. I mean, I buy books that aren't just related to what Disney and Marvel has. I've got
right.
my DC books up there. I've got pre-code horror books I like to buy, that kind of stuff. But like, I do like the fact that there is this behemoth of Disney, pushing comics. It does give you a little more faith in the longevity of that market, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because Disney, they know how to make money.
Yeah.
So they know
and
how
that's
to
the reason.
stuff.
Sorry. And that's the reason why the DC books just haven't quite caught on yet, because people don't yet believe that my investment into this thing is going to be, persistent. Like, but we're going to get Peacemaker season 2, and it seems like James Gunn's doing good stuff there. And it's like, oh, and now, spoilers, but like, okay, I haven't seen. Sorry. Cut myself off. But like, I might buy a Peacemaker book because it feels like we're going to get more Peacemaker. We're going to get more.
I want to add though, and I always say this: DC books, especially when you look at keys, especially copper and older, they continue to increase in value, which goes to show. And I'm watching the chat, and there's a lot of people like, that maybe you guys are stuck in your ways. Maybe, you like how it was 30 years ago, and that's fine. Maybe you think Disney owning Marvel has watered it down, whatever the case may be. Maybe you don't like any of this overlapping when it comes to movies and comics, but guess what? At the end of the day, comic books are still a very feasible and collectible asset, because even if we didn't have movie hype, these books continue to increase in value as a long-term investment / collectible. So I just want to throw that in there to say that, we're not sitting here saying that, comic books have to have movies or have to have Disney, or, that's not what we're saying, but we are where we're at right now. And if you are somebody that doesn't care about the movies or the TV shows, the comic books are going nowhere. The books that were printed at 12 cents are still there for you to go and collect and enjoy. The comic books that were printed at 30 cents are still there for you to collect and enjoy. And, regardless of what other people say, some new comic books might be trash. There's a lot of good stuff out there too. So just enjoy comics how you want to enjoy it. If all this other stuff is just noise to you guys, but don't bash other people for, understanding the positives and seeing what's going on right now. And I think this is a good way to sum up this piece of the show, because we got into this talking about FOMO and how, it could be worrisome and we can have concerns to way that we're just, people can get burnt. Is it becoming an addiction? But then we covered such ground and came to all these different positive factors that are out there right now, to where we are really able to enjoy these characters and enjoy these properties on a level that I think we as kids probably would have never imagined. And it really is getting to so many more people, including this younger generation. And I could see that with my kids. And I'm sorry, at the end of the day, that is a beautiful thing. And that absolutely makes me happy. But great points from both of you guys. Let's, I definitely want to keep it moving here. We got something else to talk about. Before we do that, I want to remind you guys, if you're just tuning in, make sure you check out Swagglehaus and Automatic Comics, links below. Go subscribe to them on YouTube, follow them on their Instagrams. I did say, because we hit 10K today on my channel, to say thank you to you all, I was going to be giving away a $50 mycomicshop.com gift card if we had enough people in the chat, which we definitely do, and if we hit over 400 followers on the Whatnot app. So I'm going to take a moment here, and we're going to see where we're at. We only needed
I better make sure I'm following Chris right here.
Well, that's what I was like. If you need one more,
let me pull up my Whatnot and see.
Right. So, guys, if you guys can see that, I got 398. We need
all right. Let me go over there.
My link is below. The link to Whatnot is below. Follow me at Journos Comics. We need 2 more, and I'm going to be giving away a $50 gift card to mycomicshop.com.
I think I have
All
2
right.
accounts on Whatnot. I might be just
I think I'm already following
so,
you,
yeah,
but someone out there in the chat certainly has got to get you over the edge.
Okay. All right. So, all right. Good topics of discussion. I want to say what's up to a few folks. Double A, Comic Toby, Verified, AOA. Thank you for hanging out today, this evening. All right. So we're going to get into a different talking point here. I mean, and obviously it all correlates. Got to get a little bit of water, but we are definitely, I guess you could say, on the precipice, but whatever it is, I mean, we're full on into this age of the online sale. The age of the online sale, it took off when COVID hit, and you had shops shutting their doors down saying, what are we going to do? They took to Facebook, doing Facebook live sales. They took to Instagram, doing Instagram live sales. And I saw many stores doing amazing things, including my local shop, A1 Comics. And then we get an app called Whatnot. Again, guys, go follow me. 2 more away from giving a prize away. I spent a lot of time.
It should be Whatnot. 1 more now.
I've done a few sales myself.
I see 401 on there.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. We'll check in a minute. We'll check. So if we're there, for folks that are here, you guys got to hang around if you want to be able to win a $50 gift card at mycomicshop.com. But I got my 3rd live sale coming up on Whatnot. I'm getting into selling comics now because I want Journos Comics to be a brand. I hope to own my own LCS one day, but I'm still only like selling doubles. I'm still a hoarder of my collection. So, but I'm on Whatnot a lot. I'm seeing all these sales. You get a lot of people, or I hear a lot of people saying, it's like everyone's selling comics now. It's kind of bad for the hobby. I personally don't think so. I mean, hey, like, if we're collectors, we want more people selling because there's more books out there. And if there's more competition in terms of sellers, that means technically we have more, negotiation power to where, if you're selling it for $250, this guy, I might come to get this guy and say, hey, this guy's selling it for $250. Can I get it for $240? He's like, sure, $240. And then there's some other guy that says, oh, he's going to give it to you for $240. I'll give it to you for $230. And, it can definitely allow for that healthy competition and give buyers more power with everyone selling comics. But I've also seen things happening that are kind of the opposite of that, because I think it boils down to the fact that there are a lot of uneducated people out there, especially buyers. And this does tie into the FOMO. Whether you're uneducated or you're impatient, we're not allowing ourselves to patience to barter to see what's out there. And we're hopping in a live sale, whether it's on IG, whether it's on the Whatnot app, and we're sitting there. And if a book comes up, it could be a random book. I don't know. I got a random book laying around here. I got this book priced for $3, but say I didn't have a price on it, right? And I'm in a Whatnot sale, and I'm hyping everyone up, which I should, because I'm a salesman, right? I'm selling. All right, yeah, let's go. Get those bids up, and I'm like, all right. Up next, we got a Marvel Tales, Spider-Man. It's a fine looking copy. Look at that beauty. That's a vintage comic right there. That's a 35 cent. That's Newsstand. Look at that Newsstand.
Yo, bid 10.
That's all right. Bids up. Who's gonna bid on this Newsstand? And then it's like $3, $4, $5. Oh, $5. That's a steal. $5. That's a steal. Come on. Who else wants it? Come on. And then it sells for $12. I got a price for $3, folks. So, with that being said, Swagglehaus, we'll let you jump in on this. So, my question to you, and I know I just gave you an animated example of some kind of questionable things that may be going on out there. In this age of the online sale, just on the surface level, what do you feel are some pros and cons? And I want you both to just answer that. And then I got a couple of, side questions that I want to jump in after I hear your guys' answers.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you framed the conversation like this, because we did a podcasty thing some weeks back. Ryan was on it. We had like the whole Illuminati group, and one of the conversations I brought up was like the dirty flippers or speculators and stuff. And I think it was like a really great conversation. But what I didn't do, and it was my fault, is I didn't offer sort of the one like kernel of truth in it, and that is this idea of like people who kind of pump up books in order to sell like their inventory, right? There's people out there who maybe they have a YouTube channel called Not Swagglehaus, and then they talk about a hot spec book, and then on their eBay that says Not Swagglehaus, they happen to have 10 of those listed. So I don't know, like I try not to do that, but I think there is that side of it. There is definitely that side of it. And you kind of nailed it with like the whole, like, there's a lot of FOMO in the market, and FOMO can come in those, specific live auctions as well, especially since, things move very fast and there's usually only one of that book, so you got to claim it, or you got to like bid it, or you got to win the bid, or whatever the case may be. So the FOMO can drive that. But the pros of all these, new places to buy comic books, like live sales, as you asked, is that it should mean that as a buyer, you have more of an advantage, right? There should be more competition for sellers, and you should be able to pick where you're buying. And I think that, to me, I always say like my golden rule for buying comic books is like, I'm never going to buy a comic book that is being sold for higher than what it is on eBay. Like, that's just my rule. Like, I'm never going to do it. Like, whether it's in person or on a live claim sale or on an auction, if I can find it for that eBay price, then, why would I want to buy it from, this place right here? So that's one of my rules with it. So again, for the pros and the cons of it is it's really like, you should have more opportunity to find more competitive prices. And if you are spending more than, eBay prices, the biggest market in the world, then I think that maybe you should kind of be asking yourself the question of like, okay, well, why are you so, adamant on buying from Journo, who, is a great hype man. And, and the thing is and then, maybe I do want to buy from you, Journo, because, I like what you do and I want to support you. And I'd rather pay that extra $1 to you than someone anonymous on eBay. But,
right.
To your point.
Right. Big shout out to Ronnie Boy Comics. Thank you so much for the super chat. Chris, Swaggle, and Ryan in the same room. Truly appreciate it, man. Thank you for being here. You bring up an interesting point there, man. And I'm gonna get back to that. I'm gonna take note about I'm literally taking notes. I'm not just saying that as a figure of speech. But I want Ryan to
yeah, so for me personally,
you're just surface look at it, pros, cons.
I mean, I don't see many cons to it, because I love the fact that I have tons of options for where I can find books, and you'd be surprised like where you can find certain like just on Instagram on random claim sales. I mean, that's where I found a lot of like the rare golden age books I bought, like that Crime Suspense Stories 22 back there, like the Severed Head one that was one of the big books for pre-code horror. I got it on an Elite Comics 11, just post claim. I mean, it's just like the more options you have, I think the better it is for you as a buyer. Now, you have to be knowledgeable. There's plenty of times where I see posts where books are selling for way more than what like Mickey said, like you could get on eBay, and I'm like, yeah, why? Like, why would I go do that if I could just go right away and go over and claim it on, buy it on eBay or make an offer, maybe get it for even less. And so it's up to you as someone who's spending your own money to be knowledgeable about what you're spending your money on. And I mean, I am aware that in things like auctions that you can sometimes get into that mindset of like, I want that one. But and I'll say I haven't been immune to it. I think there's one time where I did, and it was for me, it was because it was a really rare golden age book. There's this book called Suspense Comics #4. and I was like, I'm going to buy this book.
You didn't care what the end price was. You just,
yeah, like somebody kept bidding back at me, and I'm just like, "Ugh." Just like,
yeah, I've been there. I've been there.
So it happens, but for the most part, but I still I knew, like, I still knew the market for that book. Like I was like, this book is this rare. If I want to sell it, I can still set my price. And if somebody tries to give me a hard time, I'd be like, yeah, well, go find one of the other like 10 copies that are out there, you know? And so like, it is still having that additional set of knowledge to know, you know, what you're buying. But that's why, to me, like, it just like in anything, knowledge is power. And that's why I always, on my channel, I always push. I tell people, I'm like, you should be subscribed to GPA or Cover Price, or, you know, I don't like Go Collect anymore, but so,
Yeah.
but you know, one of these services that gives you that extra knowledge, you know, I mean, and that just, it only helps you. And that's, I mean, but that's also how people like me can get deals sometimes, is there are people that are selling that aren't subscribed to those services, and they price their book too cheap. And so
Ryan,
it's good on the buying and the selling side.
Yep. I love, so first off, you just really segued into my next talking point here, because it really comes down, you know, and I wanted to ask the question, like, how much is misinformation impacting the market? And not only did you lay out so many great points on buyers, and I always say this, as buyers, as collectors, we have to hold ourselves accountable. Stop blaming other people when we're, you know, not doing our due diligence and not doing our research. We have the power to make those decisions. That's why when I'm on whatnot, if I'm on a claim sale or auction sale, live sale, I have eBay pulled up, I have Cover Price pulled up, I might even have like Marvel or DC Wiki pulled
I'm the
up.
exact same
You know,
way.
yeah, so you know, you can, you know, even so, if there's a 60-second auction, you got plenty of time to look at eBay, look at, you know, Cover Price before it gets down to the bottom 5 seconds. So, but, you know, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to victim blame, because when we talk about misinformation, that can skew the mind of the seller, and we'll get into that. But I like, Ryan, how you even brought up how it works both ways, because there are a lot of sellers out there that maybe they're not misinformed, but they're just not informed, and they don't even know what they're selling. And, you know, that can benefit a seller. And, you know, so that's why I encourage everyone. It's like, I look at these people that are doing, whether it's on Whatnot or on IG, and they're pulling out books, you know, like, I don't know. I'm trying to give an example of something that I have here, but okay, like this book right here. This is Vision and the Scarlet Witch, #4, the limited series. It's, you know, it's the Magneto reveal, where he's revealed to be Wanda's father. And, you know, I mean, it's not, obviously it had a little spec with the WandaVision show. It could do a lot if we get Magneto in the MCU and that happens. But I have it priced at $12. I got it at a Fine Plus 6.5. But so on one end, I could be a seller that just takes, maybe it's not a key and it's just a 60 cent book from the early 80s, you know, and like I was doing with the other book, oh man, it's vintage, Newsstand, and I can hype it up, and maybe it's only worth a few bucks and it ends up selling for 15 because the buyers are not informed. Or I could just see this and I said, okay, this is a cool, look at this, a cool, you know, kind of 60-cent Marvel book, Vision, Scarlet Witch. All right, starting bid $1. Maybe I don't have a lot of people in my sale at that time. Maybe there's just a dozen people going on or whatnot. And, you know, you can really benefit from that. And as I got it stickered, maybe it'll only get a few bidders and maybe it sells for $6, something like that. So it could definitely go both ways. But I want to talk a little bit more about misinformation. And I'm going to give you guys an example. I was in a live show. Oh, I do want to say one more thing. I want to add this for context, folks. I sit back and watch a lot of live shows on Instagram and
I mean, like one of my pastimes, like whenever Barry Gary has his, like I just sit there and watch him. I mean, like 7 hours on like a Friday night. It's entertainment. I mean, that's part of it. It's sometimes just fun to watch.
Totally. And then Mrs. Swag's like, "Who are those nerds you're listening to?"
So I mean, we're there. We're just hanging out, and don't get me twisted. Don't get it wrong, guys. There's so many great people out there that you can interact with and just hang out with. And I want to set the record straight. I'm not going to say any names, but I've been in the live streams of a lot of big YouTubers that have, or maybe they're not even YouTubers. Maybe they're on Instagram. They have huge presences. Maybe they have relationships with other big YouTubers. And I'll tell you what, guys, I have seen more humbleness as sellers and more transparency from a lot of these people than I have of just some random sellers, because I think there is a stigma out there. Oh, this person has a YouTube. And I know, Mick, you just brought up that, there are people out there that might, push their own special interests and whatnot, but, there's a lot of people out there that get a bad rap that shouldn't. And it's just because of the success that they have. I want to let that be known. But to my point, I'm going to give an example. I was watching the show, and somebody had a book of, I should have had the image to bring up on screen here, folks. They had an Amazing Spider-Man 623. Does that ring a bell to the two of you? Amazing Spider-Man 623 at all?
No.
No. Yeah, me neither. I read almost every Spider-Man book ever printed. I'm like, what is that book? They got it in a 9.8 CBCS. It's not even CGC, it's CBCS. And it's two guys. And they are going in on, they're like, man, all right, we got Amazing Spider-Man 623. I think this is a key book. And the other guy's like, yeah, man, that's a big key right there. I mean, that's and 9.8, and they're just going in, and it said on it, Simple Simon Vulture appearance. And they were like, man, it's Simple Simon Vulture, man. That's the Simple Simon Vulture appearance. And I'm thinking in my head, Simple Simon and Vulture are two different people. And they're pumping this book up. And I'm somebody that hates the term pump and dump. I think it's used way too frivolously when people just get mad because they missed out. But these guys really are pumping this book up. This is a huge, and I guess one of the guys looked up and they're like, oh yeah, it's the first appearance of Simple Simon Vulture. Oh man, that's a huge key. That is huge. This is a huge, important key. And I'm not even really exaggerating, guys. I mean, this is how they were acting. This book sold for over $350. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. The 9.8 market right now is crazy. The 9.8 market, and to what you both talked about earlier, sometimes you look at these books that are selling, especially 9.8, and you're like, $500 for that new spec book that just came out like a month ago. I could go buy, a low grade Fantastic Four, 49, a beat up, maybe
you get White Vision for that price.
Right. So, but this book sells for, and again, it's CBCS. And this is a book that you could go on eBay and find a near mint raw copy for $3, $4, $5.
Yeah.
Do you guys even know who Simple Simon is?
No.
Okay. Let me tell you who Simple Simon is. Simple Simon is a character that showed up in two books, 623 and like 638 or something like that. And he was like a part of a group of people that were hired by some villain to get trapped Spider-Man in a trap or something like that. Nobody, this guy is nobody. It's nothing. And yet people are in this live sale spending $350 on this book. So in
I like that comment. Great deal for that Simple Simon.
Yeah, so this is where, and again, we want buyers to be educated, right? You guys have to do your due diligence. You have to. But Ryan, I mean, how do you feel this type of, and again, like, look, I'm going to give these sellers the benefit of the doubt too. Maybe these sellers maybe they didn't even know who maybe it wasn't as, malicious as it seemed. I don't know. I'm just trying to play middle of the road here, but how do you look at situations like that? And what would be, looking at both parties involved, the sellers and the buyers, how would you look at it? And what is kind of, your take on what the responsibility is for both parties?
I mean, like we talked about, if I was watching that sale, I would have GPA or cover price up right next to me. I'd look up that book and I'd see what a 9.8 has been selling for. And if it was way outside the realms, I'd immediately stop. Like say it sells for, in reality, $100 or something, in the instant it gets above 80 or something, I would just be like, no. Yeah. And so to me, it's, I mean, I follow pretty similar rules to what Swagglehaus said, that I really try not to talk much about books that I'm selling. I mean, now I do sell a lot, so it's tough. Like, and I mostly buy keys, so sometimes I will, but I'm never really trying to like push books that I'm selling. I feel like that's, I don't know, it's just kind of it feels irresponsible to to try to do that with my own stuff. But I don't hold anything against somebody for doing it. I mean, if they can do it, go for it, I guess. But the buyer should have some responsibility for knowing, like, if you're dropping $300, like, know what you're spending your $300 on. And I see it the same way with grading. I think if you're buying raw books, you do really need to learn to grade, because it's how when I buy from different sellers, I will often buy what I call like a test book or a couple test books, and they'll tell me what, like when they say the grade, it's like I record every book I buy from someone. If they give me a grade, that is in my spreadsheet, and then when I get the book, I grade it. And I put my number next to it. And now I have my feeling for how I think they grade. And that doesn't mean that if I think somebody overgrades, it doesn't mean that I won't buy from them. It just means that I now say, well, if they tell me it's a 6.5, it's probably a 5.5, right. And so I make that adjustment. And so that's when I go back to what I said, knowledge is power, and knowing how to grade. And this can be a touchy subject, because when I say knowing how to grade, I mean knowing how to grade how CGC grades. Yeah, because that's what
we're going to be here for another 2 hours talking about that now.
Because I know you use the Overstreet guide as well, and I think that is a great like starting point. But there are things in there that CGC doesn't do. Yep. If you replace your staples, you're not getting a blue label, but Overstreet says you will, and so that's where you really do have to understand the nuances, of what CGC and CBCS, and in my opinion, CGC and CBCS, they grade almost identical. So I'm not, on either side of the fight on that one. But understanding how comics are graded is extremely important if you're buying raw books, especially high dollar raw books.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And one thing that you're kind of joking with me about, my top shelf now having CGC books on it and stuff. But like, low key, part of one of the reasons why I sent it in was because I know who I bought those books from, and they're like LCSs that I visit somewhat frequently. And so to me, it was just like, I'm almost certain I know what the grades are, but let me just, send it in and really like, see it for yourself. Cause it's like, obviously the best way you're going to learn. And so it is interesting to see like which dealers were on exactly the grade that they were on, which dealers were undergrading, which dealers were overgrading. So now I have a sense of that.
So Mickey, what just on the Simple Simon example?
Simple Simon is taking over
Look,
the chat.
You said that Simple Simon only had 2 appearances. So I guess that book is his second appearance.
No, maybe his first.
Yeah, the 623 was.
His first. Massive key, right?
Yeah,
right. I mean, do you feel, and again, maybe we're being a bit redundant here and whatnot, but just, if how about this? If you were like me watching that, if you were in there seeing that, I mean, what's coming to your head? What thoughts are coming to your head?
I mean, look, like, you know, dealers are going to be salesmen, you know, about things, and there's always going to be like, you know, some salesmen that are maybe a little more pushy than they probably should be. And I would just say, like, you know, like, just like Ryan said, you got to be able to do your own research. I mean, especially when it's like a live thing, you can just have like your phone open, or I guess if you're watching on your phone, you can be on your computer and just be there. And it shouldn't be too hard for you to actually find out what the real prices are. So you, the buyer, have that responsibility. You know, if you're a seller and you're promoting it and you're giving out misinformation, I mean, I would think that eventually that's probably going to catch up with you. Like, I mean, because if you're someone who buys from that and you find out that, you know, Simple Simon is not like the hot spec he's supposed to be, like, you probably shouldn't go back to that buyer, or at least you should let them know. And if they were just mistaken, then at least they'll learn. So I think, you know, again, like, I think it would be especially a problem if, like, you know, because sometimes in those whatnot sales specifically, it can be like pretty intimate because there's like only like 15 people in there. Right. And like when you can't creep in a, like, it's not like Instagram Live where it's like, I feel like when I go in, like, you know, it's a little bit discreet, but like, you know, when you go into whatnot, it says like Swagglehaus Comics has joined with like a hand sign. Right, so like they see me there. And if the seller is like, dude, come on, swag, come on, like, I know you're blah, 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 and they're like specifically saying to somebody, I mean, like, I feel like that's just straight bullying, you know, at that point as a seller. So like, hopefully it's not at that level.
Yeah, let me ask you this.
That comment too.
Dr. Joe, yeah. Do you think it's okay to call out sold comps in the channel live sales? Swag, what do you think about that?
I don't think it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, I mean, you can, but like, again, everyone can have their own price, right? Because it's like, sometimes it's like people who sell comics, I mean, most people who sell comics are also collectors. So it's really like, here's the price that you're going to have to pay to pry this out of my hands. Now, if someone is selling it for cheaper, by all means, buy it from them. But, you know, my price is my price. So it doesn't really matter what the actual sold comps are. Also, sold comps, it could be like, sure, someone scored a deal on a live auction bid at midnight and they got it for, you know, $300 under FMV. And it's like, cool. Well, that lucky person bought the bottom, and I'm not concerned with what the sold price was.
And I think it's best to, like, even in that situation where I was watching those sellers, like, for me, I'm not going to call people out even for, you know, what I just don't think, you know, I know maybe we think we're doing it out of good intentions, but I think it puts a target on you. And, what I like to do, and I've done this before, is where maybe somebody's selling something that they don't really know, and you maybe, like, they're like, is this their first appearance? And you're like, no, that's so-and-so's second appearance. Like, you know, you say something like that, you help provide, or, you know, I think
that's fine. I think there's something that's incorrect like that, that's totally fine.
Right.
I think giving out pricing, though, it's like you're purposefully trying to hurt the seller. And I don't, you know, whether somebody realizes that or not, I mean, that's what you're doing. And so that's why I don't like, whenever people make comments like that, even on like Instagram, when somebody posts a book and they're like, oh, you know, is it selling for that much now? You know, like those types of comments, they're undermining the seller. And I feel like they aren't necessary. I don't think that those types of comments should, and usually they get deleted, you know? So, but that's just, I mean, that's my opinion. I don't want to try to hurt someone else's business. Even if I think they're priced high, what do I care? Like, I mean, that doesn't hurt me. You know, if they want to sell it for that, it's like Mickey said, it's their book. It's what, like, I've had people message me on eBay, you know, occasionally on books that they think I might have priced too high. And like, I had somebody that messaged me about my Avengers 1. I'm like, it's my Avengers 1. Yeah. I'm going to ask what I want for it. You know?
Right.
Kanye charges like what, $1,000 for his Yeezys, and I ain't touching them, but more power to him, right?
Yeah.
And someone asked a while ago, I don't know if they're still in the chat, what the issue with, because I made that comment about Go Collect, what the issue was with Go Collect, because people used to always talk about it. Because I used to be that's what I used almost exclusively. And they made an update to their site like in October last year, and it just, their sales were linked incorrectly, all kinds of problems. And so I lost complete faith in and the site slowed down significantly. They added a bunch of new features that added no value, and so that's why I stopped, and why I think a lot of people stopped using Go Collect.
Yeah, and like I always say, guys, always use multiple sources. And I really like using Cover Price because they have clickable link access. If you're looking at a specific book, you can have clickable link access to eBay listings and a My Comic Shop as well. And they pull from a lot of different sources, but always use multiple sources, guys. So, okay, we have one more little I'm going to touch briefly to one more thing that relates to this, and then we're going to get in our final, big talking point. Before we do so, I do want to let everyone know, and I want to thank you guys. We did hit over 400 followers on the Whatnot app. If you guys still aren't following me on there at Journos Comics, definitely go download the app. The link's below and follow. But
he hypes books up super hard on his profile. So
I'm gonna go try to find a 623 right now.
Yeah, I do. I got books up for buy it now on my upcoming sale. So, but guys, we're going to be giving away a mycomicshop.com gift card, a $50 gift card to somebody tonight. And I think what we'll do, Swag, because you just recently hit 10K too. I'll have you ask a question. How does that sound?
Sure. Yeah. I can.
Okay. We're gonna wait though. What we're gonna do, guys, we're gonna end this topic of discussion about the age of the live sale. And then we'll do the giveaway, and then we'll get into some final talking points, and we'll kind of wrap up. Okay. So briefly, and I know, like, I just did a video on this, and I know that this can be a show in its own, and we could talk about this for hours, but I want to ask you guys, and try to sum it up briefly, but correlating to being in these live sales, and whether it's, they're just being salesmen or, used car salesmen and they're hyping stuff up, I used to be in phones. And I remember, when the new iPhones come out, you get the 90-year-old man coming in, and he just says, he's got his flip phone with little buttons, and he's like, I need an upgrade, and I just want something that I can see. And who knows that they still sell flip phones, by the way, and they make them with super large.
You have to travel you have like time machine to go.
Yeah, no, they make them specifically for like like people that obviously don't need smartphones, but for elder people that have sight vision or whatever, the salesperson goes and grabs the iPhone and sells this 90-year-old man on a brand new iPhone. You don't even know how to work it, right? So you can get that with sales.
That 90-year-old man's grandson hates that person.
Yep.
As somebody who has experienced that,
right?
I'm not a fan of that.
But when it comes to a lot of the hype that that some sellers put on books, there is the hype around the newsstand. And I just did a video trying to outline where I believe newsstand kind of starts beginning to matter. Do you guys feel like the hype around newsstands is again, and I know you guys can answer with the same answer that we've been saying, the buyer's got to be educated, but do you think that this is kind of a thorn in the side with some sellers? And do you think that they're really pushing that newsstand, knowing that it's just a selling point? It really doesn't matter for your 70s newsstands or maybe even your 80s newsstands. Mickey, I'll let you jump in here first.
I mean, like, you're going to use whatever you can to pitch and sell your book. And that's just the truth. And I feel like if you have a newsstand copy, you're going to say, like, yeah, it's a newsstand. And you're going to use that as maybe leverage in order to sell that thing. I personally don't care about newsstands. Like, I think it is super, super overblown, especially when we're talking about, like you said, like pre, 88, type of years. But I think it's kind of like, the market's the market. It's kind of like CGC and CBCS, where it's like, in theory, we should all just value CBCS just as equally as CGC. But since we don't, and the market kind of all think that newsstands are more valuable, therefore they are more valuable, therefore we think they're more valuable, therefore they sell for more. It just is like a vicious cycle in that sense. So, I personally, again, would not buy or chase a newsstand for my own collection stuff. But if I, we're out in an LCS and I found a newsstand copy of a thing, I'm definitely going to sell it at the newsstand price because that's just whatever the market decides. So that's kind of how I feel about that.
Sure.
I'm a good person to have on here for this discussion because I like newsstands.
Okay, nice.
For me, I specifically like the 9/8, and so
Right.
and that's where I think it does get a little fuzzy. And the tricky part is that CGC doesn't designate if it's a newsstand or not on the census. So you really can't say for sure if a 9/8 newsstand is more rare or less, even when there were more. But the thing you can do is you can often go on to places like eBay and look at what's available for sale. And so what you will find a lot of the time is that now there are some exceptions, but a lot of the time, at least in 9/8, even when you were very early on in that transition from newsstand to direct, where there were lots more newsstands, you will find a lot less newsstands available. And so now that might mean that they are more rare, or it just might mean at that moment in time less for sale. But like one example is Moon Knight #1. You will find a ton of direct 9/8 direct 9/8 copies of Moon Knight #1, and not very many newsstands. They are pretty uncommon to come across in that grade. And so you do have that aspect of rarity for that type in grade. Now, it is one of those things where it's like if you're talking about like a 6.5, there's going to be way more newsstands out there. But when you're talking about, high grade, then it can be different. And so there is like a range in there, or a gray area on how that can be interpreted for rarity and value and everything. And I mean for lots of collectors, they don't care one way or the other. And that's fine. Go buy the direct and get it for cheaper, and and that go that route. But other collectors like myself, like I like getting that 9/8 newsstand copy. There's just something, I don't know, something about it that I like to chase.
Man. Well said. Yeah. And you know what? I personally like the way the earlier newsstands look, say, especially for Marvel, when you had the the bar, the Marvel Comics group, banner across the top. Let's see if I have a direct here. Everything's newsstand. Oh man, come on, man! I gotta have a direct. Yeah. Oh, here we go. So while I'm not, super huge on a barcode next to like a Spidey face, you either had the, they started doing the M, or they had the diamond.
Yeah.
I
don't like the diamond.
I hate the M's.
I don't like the diamond either.
I don't like. Where's the diamond? I gotta have a diamond here. Come on, diamond. Where are you?
Yeah, it's weird how these little, there's just little things that
all of it adds up to the aesthetics,
Yep, aesthetics.
Exactly. No, it's funny because it's like part of the reason, part of the reason I actually personally don't love Bronze Age books is that I don't like the Marvel Comics group at the top. It bothers me.
Well, part of the issue is that if it's not square, it really throws off the visual appeal of the book.
Yeah. Anyways,
so you got the diamond, and then you got the M for the directs, and then you got the standard just price box and number box. And yeah, I really don't like the diamond. The M's okay, but I go for newsstands not because of value, but just because of, like Mickey said, the aesthetics absolutely mean a lot to a lot of collectors. So fun stuff, right? And this goes back to what I said early on when we first started the show. This really proves that there are so many variables and factors to comic books and to the hobby that speak to us differently, right? And I think that's one thing that makes comics so
there are lots of niche markets out there. You know, like people that collect Mark Jewelers, people that collect National Diamond inserts, people that collect Canadian price. I saw a comment about Canadian price variants, UK price variants. There's so much. There's so much out there that somebody can focus in on, and understanding how people collect within the comic market as a whole, in those little groups can, that's another piece of knowledge that you can have if you're buying and selling.
Absolutely. I want to say what's up to some folks, Linkovich, Satori, Joseph, Sean, Brian, the Daily Baller. Man, Los Ultra Maximus. All right, folks. We're gonna do a giveaway. We got a lot of people hanging out.
Nice.
I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys being here. We hit 10K right before the show. So again, I just want to give my thanks to all of you. If you are just joining and you aren't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I make content like every single day. I don't take a day off. I don't sleep. So we're going to do a giveaway, though. Somebody is going to win a mycomicshop.com $50 gift card. Now, I asked that you guys, and maybe I should have known this before. I don't know if you guys know. Do you guys know if My Comic Shop ships overseas? I know they ship to Canada. Shipping can obviously get a little hefty to Canada. Do you guys know if they ship overseas?
I assume they do, but I honestly have no idea.
Yeah. So just be mindful of that, folks. If you are overseas, but it will be a digital gift card. So, it's not something that you're going to receive in the mail. But here we go. We're going to, again, I'm letting Mickey do the answer or excuse me, not the answer, the question. And I'm going to put a little line in the comments because we know how things are. So, and I'm going to tell you guys this too, because we did a live giveaway last week, and I went, some people were like, oh man, like I was first. And I went back and I noticed that there were a couple of people, the person that thought they were first still wasn't first, but there was a couple people that showed up before the winner. And you guys got to understand, I'm not picking favorites. I have to pick who I see first on my end. We know that the internet, can be a little slow responsive to some people. So just keep that in mind. This is just the best way that we can do this. But whoever gets it first on my end is going to be that winner. So
I'm just laughing at the comment about using the gift card to buy all the ASM 620.
Oh my goodness. There we go. So what Mickey is going to ask the question, and as soon as he's done asking the question, I'm going to click enter. And if anybody answers the question before that line shows up, you're not going to be qualified to win. It has to be under the line. All right. So, okay, Mickey. So, is that's the answer to the question that you shared to me?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right, guys. I'm ready. I got my finger on the trigger for a $50 My Comic Shop gift card. Mickey, are we ready?
Well, since it's a Journos Comics giveaway, I feel like you have to have been a Journos Comics viewer.
I love it.
To, have been able to answer this question. And unfortunately, I am a viewer, but I can't participate. So I'm going to ask this question. All right. So Journo, not too long ago, maybe a couple months ago, maybe it was in this calendar year. I can't quite remember, but say in the last few months, recently purchased a very big book. And ironically, he also purchased a collection. And when he got that collection, it had that book in it. So he had two big Grail books of the same thing. What is the name of that book, and who is the character who makes their first appearance in it?
Awesome. There's the line. Let's see what we got. We got some Warlock. I bought a lot of Warlock, but that's not the right answer. I love folks answering with Warlock, though. I love it. You guys know me.
Maybe we saw it.
What's the issue? What's the issue? What's the issue number?
Need both parts.
I think we maybe.
I think.
All right. Okay. Good. I thought we might have to. Are we going to give it to somebody if they said the character's first appearance or the actual book number? But the same person that said the first appearance first was the same person that put the actual issue number, and that is where's this comment right here. So I'm glad that it worked out that way. Los, congrats. Yes, Amazing Spider-Man 101, the first appearance of Morbius. And yeah, Swag, it was a few months ago. I was saving up my money and I got a really good deal for one, you know, a nice lower mid-grade one from my shop, A1 Comics. And then like a week later, I purchased a nice little collection and there just happened to be one in there. So I was able to, you know, sell one and get some money back. But Los, congratulations, Los. You won a $50 gift card to mycomicshop.com. Hit me up, either private message on Instagram or shoot me an email. I'm going to leave my email right here, Captain Journo Comics. So you can give me your information and we can get you that $50 gift card. Keep in mind, folks, I do have a video going on right now where if you comment on that video and subscribe to the channel and click the like button and the notification bell, you can also win another $50 gift card to mycomicshop.com. I also have another video where I'm giving away a grab bag of comic books and a BCW store folio. And we also have more giveaways over the next coming weeks, more gift certificates, slab comic books, CGC books, EGS books. I'm telling you guys, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, please. All right. Swaggle, thank you so much for that. That was an awesome question. All right. Let's move on. We are going to wrap this show up with some final talking points. And we had so much covered today. A lot of great insight from both of you guys. So we're going to really just end. I mean, look, you know, we talked about some things that might, you know, seem concerning, you know, from some angles. We both of you brought up a lot of, you know, positives, though, to certain things, a lot of optimism still. But I definitely want to get your guys' take. Now, for some more context, maybe the answer to this question has to do with how you guys collect. But you guys stated a little bit about that tonight. You know, all three of us, you know, we sell a little bit. We'll sell some comics here and there. I think we're all heavy collectors in terms of we actually thoroughly collect what we enjoy. Do we all read, at least to a certain extent here?
Yeah, I read less. I have a buddy who gives me lots of books that are like, that's one of the ways I got back into it was he gave me he sends me like the trades of like Invincible and Walking Dead, and I like that's how like Invincible is one of my favorite. Oh God, I love it. It's so good. That's why I was so happy when Amazon made that show. But
I do definitely prefer reading trades.
Yeah. Trades are
like I have some people ask like, do you know, and sometimes it comes across as kind of like an attacking question. I don't know, but they're like the books I'm buying, you know, that I'm doing an unboxing. It's like, do you even read those? And I'm like, no. Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm handling these as little as humanly possible. It's like, I'm not like, I see people on Instagram every once in a while post pictures of them holding, like reading through their Amazing Fantasy 15. And I'm like, I am not touching a book. It's like
each their own,
in the mile.
No, yeah. I hear you. So I think it's safe to say, though, that I think all of us are very well-rounded in the hobby. You know, we have very different ways that we enjoy comic books and how we collect and invest. So, Ryan, I'm going to start with you on this one. And again, you know, maybe on just a broader note, you know, from the couple of talking points that we talked about, but how are you as a collector feeling about the comic hobby and industry right now? And, you know, are you overall optimistic? Do you still hold concerns for you specifically and how you collect and how you see yourself in the hobby, you know, over the next maybe, you know, 3, 4, 5 years from now?
I mean, for me, if you watch my channel, you know, I buy a lot of books. So I clearly still feel very strongly about the comics as a collectible investment, whatever you want to say, you know, as a whole. Now, one reason that I personally don't get as concerned, like there was a comment earlier I saw where someone said, you know, there's going to be people in the streets when, you know, on the streets when the prices drop. And it's like, I don't buy books with borrowed money. You know, I always make sure if I'm buying a book, I'm buying that book with money I have. And it's often from money that I made selling other books. You know, that's, I largely just funnel the money that I used
Right.
I sell books back into buying new books. And so if you're not overextending yourself, it doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, prices might come down, but if it's not money you need to eat or live, like, why, it doesn't really make that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. I mean, yeah, it might suck to see from, just a value perspective that some of the prices of your books have dropped. But if you're not overextending yourself to buy, then it's not a big deal to me. But I also think we have, I personally don't think we're going to see something like we saw last year again, at least not anytime soon. Like, that was you look across the history of prices for 20 plus years, you haven't seen anything like that. I mean, that was a pretty steep increase in prices. And so I think it's more likely we'll get back to where things have been historically, which is more or less kind of like inflation type rises in prices of books, a few percent a year, that kind of thing, with the outliers that are the hot book of the moment. And so, I mean, that's why I'm not worried about it. I mean, if you're comfortable with what you're spending on comics, then, and you're not, like I said, you're not overextending yourself, I don't think there's anything to really worry about. And like I mentioned earlier, I do really like the fact that you have that powerhouse of Disney behind, at least we'll call it like half of the comic market. I mean, it's not pushing DC, but there are parts of DC that are getting stronger again. I mean, like we were talking about Peacemaker. I mean, Peacemaker was they have some properties that have been really good. Now, granted, that largely probably came from the fact that it was James Gunn, who is also one of the people that really pushed, the Marvel properties. But they have characters that can create some great content. They just need the right people behind it. And so, yeah, overall, I'm not concerned, but I'm not somebody who, like someone said, I wouldn't be spending my rent money, on comics.
Yeah,
absolutely. Swaggle, what you got, man?
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm optimistic, to the things that even Ryan was pointing out. It's like, look, this Marvel Disney machine is at least going to be running for like the next 4 or 5 years, right? Like, at the very minimum. So, if the question is like, am I worried that the value of all my books are going to go down? It's like, I'm not really worried, because one, I tend to buy stuff that historically has kept its value, mostly like Silver Age and Bronze stuff. And also too, like, the way that I buy books, it's like, I really focus on like the entry point. And I take great pride in knowing that every book that I've bought has never gone down in value. Like, overall, that's like something I just want to make sure that I try to always not necessarily catch the bottom, but just, not had stuff not like totally fall off. Now in the future, is it possible that next generation of people don't want to collect comic books? Like, maybe the kids are going to collect all like NFTs and things like that. Sure, that's totally possible. And maybe where the market stops is with the generation of people who still enjoy the tactile feel of a comic book, and that's always a possibility. But, we're all the same age. So when we're like 70 or 80 years old, we can still have claim sales and sell to each other. And we'll enjoy that, so, I don't really know, but I mean, like, it's the value and the brand and the IP of characters like Iron Man and Captain America and et cetera, are going to be valued in pop culture. I mean, till, the end of time, essentially, because this is a Disney property now. People are always going to want to have it, and they'll never be able to take away the fact that those characters came from the comic books that, you see behind me. So that will always keep those somewhat relevant. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Great answer, guys. I'll just answer my own question by stating that, this goes back. A lot of people asking me, I titled it, I'm a collector and I'm worried, and it's like, I'm not. I have a lot of concern right now. I do. But my concern isn't necessarily the state of the hobby. or the industry or the market. It's the state of individuals. And of course, my concerns there can and will impact the hobby. It's not going to impact me for the most part because I'm not buying a Black Panther 3 for $100, the cover A for $100 raw. I mean, I either put it on my previews list and got it for 35% off cover price, or I'm never buying it again. Or if maybe if it comes down to $10 book, maybe I will then. And I'm fine with that. I don't care. It doesn't hurt me. I'm not buying, I'll probably never own a West Coast Avengers 45 because I do believe, you know, now that the book came down like 50%, I think it's never going to be a $5-10 book ever again. And I don't care to spend even $30-40. I don't care. Maybe if I get it in a collection, who knows? So it's not going to impact me and how I collect and invest and enjoy comic books. But because of my platform and because I see myself as, you know, a journalist and a lot of the nature of the content that I produce, I talk about these things. I analyze the market and I understand people's behaviors. And that's why I like to bring up my concerns. And it goes back to what I've talked about over the last month and a half now since coming into 2022. My theme for this year for journals, comics, and pop culture is the smart collector, the smart buyer, the smart seller. I am going to spend this year doing my best to take topics like this and look at both sides and really help educate folks out there be able to do everything that us three discussed tonight. Understand the red flags, understand where to be optimistic and how to look at the positives, how to be educated as a buyer or a seller, and take all these things into account, because then doing that is going to allow this hobby and industry and the market to be even more healthy than it is now. And I just want to add that I believe the market is healthy now, even with the COVID boom. I wasn't ever concerned with the market. I wasn't. Now, obviously, in any market, when you see such, you know, extreme highs so fast, there's a very large chance in those books coming down to some extent. And we saw that, and it's just a matter of buying. And it's like, that's what I say to all those people saying the comic market's going to crash. It's the 90s again. No. And that's why I do videos, and I will do videos, guys. You could throw books at me right now and I will do a video and we'll look at where it was at before COVID. We'll look at it at its high, and then we'll look at it at its current state. And even if it's dropped 20%, 30%, I guarantee you a large majority of books, especially if they're, you know, decent key books, they're still going to be up 20, 30, 40% from where they were before the COVID boom.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually what I cover in a lot of my videos, where I'll do like an unboxing, and one of the books I'll then expand on. So say it's like a Spider-Man villain. I'll cover like the early Silver Age Amazing Spider-Man villains, and I'll look at the price like a year ago, its peak, and where it's at now. And it just kind of to try to see if I do it to try to find like undervalued books to see if like, oh, there's like this one hasn't moved as much as all these others, and so maybe it's a book that's worthwhile to pick up now. But I don't think I have yet to come across, and I've done quite a few of those, a book that is lower than it was, you know, pre-COVID.
Only Eternals books.
Well, but even Eternals books, Eternals books are still up.
Yeah.
Like I bought I've sold it now, but I had bought I had a 9.8 of Eternals 1 that I bought for like $1,000, you know, and I think I sold it for like 2,500, and that book is still going for like 15. Yeah, it's down from like the 39 that it peaked at, but it's still above where it was.
A couple months ago, I did a video. What is I can't, is it Marvel? It's the magazine of Star-Lord's first appearance.
Marvel Premiere number 4.
Yeah. So that one, book.
Preview, Marvel Preview number 4.
There you go. That book was down pre-COVID numbers. So there are books, there are a few out there but you know what? And like you said, Ryan, to your point, I think that's a book that can.
I love that
slowly-
cover. It's a cool cover. If you've ever had one in person, it
Yeah,
is an impressively drawn. It's like a painted cover. It's nice.
They are out there though, but and I do want to add. I know we talked a lot of our conversation tonight was heavily on the investing side of things, but to continue my answer to my own question about am I worried? I also want to talk about folks that aren't too concerned about the value in the investment, because I believe that there's a lot of rhetoric out there these days that just think that comic books are trash. Whether it's the art, whether it's the storytelling, whatever the case may be. And I want to remind folks too that that's not the case, because those same people that say that are usually people that say, I don't even read modern comics. So it's like, well, what is it? Are modern comics trash and you can't stand them, or have you not even picked one up? So I want to remind people that there's always been bad art in comics. There's always been bad stories in comics, and it's the same nowadays. Yes, I understand the price points. That's where things can get questionable and it's stuff, but there are a lot of good stories out there. There's a lot of stuff that's garbage. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I can't stand what Nick Spencer did on his run of Amazing Spider-Man. Good freaking Lord. But there's a lot of great stuff out there, guys. There should
when you have 85 years of content, where people are putting out books every month, there's going to be good and bad.
Exactly. So I want to allow people to just keep an open mind to that as well. Comic books aren't going anywhere. A lot of people hate on what DC's doing. I think there's a silver lining in some of what DC's doing. So overall, again, just to wrap up my point, I'm with you guys. I really want to see folks. I don't want to see one person come into this hobby and feel burnt out or feel burnt because they had FOMO that they couldn't control, because they didn't do their due diligence, because they were in a live sale and some guy was hyping up the first appearance of Simple Simon and they blew their paycheck on it. So again, I'm not concerned.
You are single-handedly responsible.
Dude, I gotta be honest. I had to look up that book while we were on stream, and that cover is pretty dope.
It is a cool cover.
The Jusco cover.
Close up of his face. Yeah. So, guys, guys, look, in the words of rest in peace, our good friend OMG Chris. I always like to pay him tribute. If you guys don't know, he was a good friend of the community. They had a little YouTube channel, who passed away almost 2 years ago now. And he collected what he loved and he shared it on YouTube. And that's how he would end all of his videos. Collect what you love. And hey, if you're here on YouTube, share it with us. If you're on IG, share it with us. Focus on the good, guys. There's no, look, at the end of the day, it's comic books. There's no reason why comic books in this hobby, in this industry, should bring anything bad to your life. And you got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, if you're a content creator and you're constantly making videos about how much you hate comics, or if you're in the comments of videos talking about how much you hate comics, or you're on Facebook and Facebook groups and you're arguing with people and it's getting out of control because he likes this character and you don't, or he collects variants and you think they're trash, or you like graded books and that's all you buy and he thinks you're crazy. At the end of the day, if any of this seems to be unhealthy for you, that's on you to take a step back and think about if you're doing it right or if it's even for you, because this is something that we all can enjoy at an individual level that speaks for us. And I think that's how we should take this hobby moving forward. So with that being said, I want to thank the chat again for a wonderful show tonight. And of course, my guests. And I want to let you guys get the last word. Swagglehaus, I'll let you jump in if you got any final words, anything that you want to get off your chest, anything going on with your channel, upcoming shows or sales or anything.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for, having me on. Always a pleasure to, hang with you on the stream and likewise with, Ryan. So it's always great talking comic books. And to reiterate your point, just to sum it up, definitely buy comics to remember, not to forget. Like that's something that you should do in your life for sure. But as for me, I'm Swagglehaus. If you want to go check out my channel, like the preamble we did at the beginning, I make comic book content video. So go hop over there and maybe give it a sub. Ironically, tomorrow I am doing a live stream sale, and I will try not to hype my books, and I will try to give good deals with real info. And I will try to be very educated about the
You
books
make
that I'm
those
selling.
great hype videos, though. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They make me want to go watch.
Look, if I only applied myself in life to something as much as I do to making meme videos, I just, who knows what I could have accomplished at this point. But yeah, unfortunately, I will not have a simple jack for sale tomorrow.
All right. Well, somebody did say that you need to shoot a music video with Simple Simon in it. So.
Oh yeah, Simple Simon. Yeah. Well, look. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is the grassroots effort for like the Simple Simon meme book.
I'm just gonna change my YouTube name to Simple Simon Comics and Pop Culture.
Yeah, but no, that's what I got. So if you guys want to come to check out the stream, you don't even have to buy some books. I'm going to be doing some giveaways in it too. So it's always kind of a fun time, regardless. So tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. on my YouTube.
Is that Pacific time?
PST.
Pacific?
Yeah, Pacific.
7:30 Eastern. Awesome, man. Awesome. Right on. Ryan, Automatic Comics. What you got?
Yeah. So I apologize that I don't have a lot of my last video was on Monday, and because then I was on vacation, I need to to get some more out there. So I need to film some probably this weekend to put out there. But like I said, I do all kinds of videos, unboxings, so you can see some cool books. Then like top 10 type videos, mark videos to kind of get an idea what's going on. I'll be on Superpower Review tomorrow for their What's That Comic Book segments. That's at 9 p.m. tomorrow. So maybe doesn't really interfere with Mickey's sale. So if you want to, it's a little later. So if you want to,
is that 9 p.m. Eastern?
Yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Awesome. There you go. So you guys got a busy Saturday tomorrow, hanging out with Swag and then Ryan.
You just keep the audio on for yours and just keep mine in like a little window. Just see if that hot
then
book
just
shows
type
up.
claim randomly.
Yeah.
On the other one. So, but yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. It's never a bad time if you're getting to talk comic books for a while. And that's one of the reasons I've liked getting on Instagram and on YouTube is it connects you with other people and you get to actually talk about this stuff. Whereas normally I probably wouldn't get to very much, so just, it really connects, people from all over the place. Cause I'm East Coast, you guys are both West Coast and still on here able to talk about comics.
Absolutely, man. Right on, guys, both of you. And hey guys, another reminder for me, Sunday, Comic Book Canon. We moved Comic Book Canon over to Sunday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. The Comic Book Canon link should be below. And if not, just Google Comic Book or, YouTube search Comic Book Canon. Again, though, Ryan's link, Swagglehaus's links are below. Go sub them up. Find them on Instagram, too. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me here tonight. Big congrats and respect to what you both are doing,
and congrats again on that 10,000 subs. That's awesome.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Same with Swagglehaus, too, earlier this week, hitting it. So, right on. And all the chat, thank you guys. It's nothing without all of you guys. So again, I hope to see all of you over on the Canon on Sunday. And I'm going to be reporting in with Swag and Ryan tomorrow to make sure you guys are in their shows. If not, I'm going to come for you. We're going to send Simple Simon after you. So. All right, guys. Be well. Peace.
Later.